Hallo? Super, vielen Dank. Oh, we switched to English now.
Yes. Perfect. Welcome, everyone. I think we're 2 minutes late, but that's not a big deal. Is there anything you need? Achso, hier ist die Grenze für die Kamera.
Yeah, now I get it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, welcome, and we're glad you made it, because I think there was the wrong title here and people were a little bit confused. So happy to have you all here. Just a quick introduction, who doesn't know us yet. My name is Graf, and I'm happy to share this keynote today with my colleague Martin EL-Khouri. From my side, it was a coincidence that I'm actually here, because I'm not a coder. For me, this is a great honor. Stefan reached out to me and said, yeah, you're now working for Avato Systems. I come from the art space, actually. And what are you guys doing with NFTs and Web3? Because this is still, as I've learned yesterday at the speakers dinner, a topic that is not really into the mass market. And yeah, this is why Avato Systems is exactly working on this. And yeah, please give a short introduction about yourself too, Martin.
Thank you. So my name is Martin. Nice to be here. Thank you all for taking your time. I know there is plenty of very interesting topics happening in parallel. So actually, I'm not a coder as well. So probably you guys understand the nitty-gritties much better than we do. But we kind of work at the business side, right? And I have actually a quite interesting history. I work in venture capital at the moment with Bertelsmann Investments, which is basically the VC arm that I will introduce in a few minutes. But if you look at kind of this picture and look up my profile, then you will see that I'm actually a social scientist. So many of the things that we are talking about today are actually kind of derived from actual relevance. And this is why we figured we wanted to call this talk Re-Evaluating Value, because this is for us the true value proposition that blockchain and Web3 actually delivers. But before we speak about that, we have a couple of questions for you, because you need to know what Bertelsmann is, what Bertelsmann Investments is, etc. So, Anna?
It's a little quiz, and talking from this society perspective, actually this is also where I come from, so we are the perfect match now doing this in from a bigger picture and perspective. So yeah, on the you see a picture here this from different things, and who of you has ever heard of the RTL group, or maybe even watched RTL Plus, whatever? Yeah, okay, so many people know this one actually. This is one of our biggest parts at Bertelsmann actually. So first thing you can remember, media.
We saw many hands up there. Good.
Yeah,
so
media.
who of you guys knows Michelle Obama? Not in person, obviously, so I think everybody can raise their hands. So we are actually also part of the biggest trade book publisher in the world. We own it. It's Penguin Random House, and we have published, for example, this very popular book, which is Becoming by Michelle Obama. So you might have kind of interfered with Bertelsmann at some point in time without even noticing. And then the third example that you can see here, also quite popular. You might have heard of Tina Turner, probably. Anyone who hasn't heard of Tina Turner yet? No one. Good.
See, even the younger generation.
Exactly. Everybody knows her, and she is actually signed with BMG, a music label that also is part of Bertelsmann Group. So you see basically we're a huge media company, but aside of that we do other stuff, and this is what Anna is kind of representing
exactly today. So at the last picture you see the Hamburg airport.
Frankfurt.
Oh, this is Frankfurt. Okay, thank you. So it's Frankfurt. Yeah, it's a little bigger. You're right. So we see Frankfurt airport, but actually for Hamburg airport, I mean, you might all have been traveling here either by car, train, or you might have even flown here. For Hamburg Airport, Avato Systems is doing most of the digital stuff. So everything you see that it's digitalized, there is a huge chance that Avato Systems is behind this. And this shows that we unite so many different topics, because on our panel we were talking about why enterprises are that slowly in adapting Web3. And just coming from these 4 examples, which are a small part of what we're actually doing in particular at all, this is already showing that there's a wide range of where we are already looking into.
Right, but we don't want to speak about Bertelsmann. You have a summary here. So we are a huge corporate player. We have content services and education as our main businesses. And then also there is one division that we have, which is Bertelsmann Investments, which I am representing. And just to share a few information on what we do, we are a global network of funds. We operate out of China, India, and the United States, invest in a plethora of different types of business models, and particularly our colleagues in Asia and our colleagues in the US are also heavily looking into the field of Web3. Now over to Avato.
Oh, they were already. Yeah, Avato Systems. I think most of the people I met here really know Avato Systems because we are a huge player, a partner in developing. Our claim is we empower digital leaders, and you will always find us as a trusted partner for software solutions, integrations, and working together with all hyperscalers. So you see some features here, and what is really important for me working as innovation lead Web3 are the different topics that I can connect now. You see from utilities over retail and customer goods, and I will come back to this later, we really cover a lot of fields that might not seem to work together at the first sight, but when it comes to Web3, we are creating, and Martin will be talking about this now, a new layer that interconnects all these verticals. So this is super interesting for us.
Exactly, and when Anna means we in that sense, she doesn't mean Bertelsmann, and I would say now the advertisement is over, and we actually start diving into what we want to talk about today. And what we want to speak about is what blockchain as an infrastructure layer actually does to the way business is done globally. And I would like you to just have a look on these verticals that you see on top, and on the infrastructure layers that you see below. What is a vertical? Yeah, basically a vertical is very easy to describe. Music is a vertical, right? You can make music, you can record it, you can sell it, easy. You don't need necessarily any type of kind of technical application to do that. It works as a standalone vertical. The same is true for publishing, right? You can write a book, you can print it, you can sell it. You don't necessarily need anything that supports this process. It's a vertical, standalone, works for itself. The same is true for all the other topics that you see on top. But sometimes, in the history of civilization, things happen, inventions happen, and they entirely change the logic that business is done. The internet was the first one, right? When we think about when it started, I think in the 70s as a research project, basically, people would actually say, why do we need that? Why do I need to send an email from A to B? What is the value proposition for that? People didn't actually believe that this is, let's say, worth looking for or worth applying. Now, just think about it, like we wouldn't probably be able to live without internet connection. We're just so used to it. What did it do? It entirely changed the way these verticals function. You don't need to go to a shop to buy a CD anymore. At the beginning, they were just uploaded, you could download these songs. Easy.
And it was illegal.
Yeah, of course it was illegal, but I mean, we're not speaking about the regulatory aspect, right? So you could just download it. The same for books, for any type of content. And then another, let's say, revolutionary development happened on the tech side, which was the cloud. Again, would you say that cloud is a vertical? No, because the cloud technology has, again, entirely disrupted the way these verticals actually operate, right? Business models like Netflix were possible. If you think about it, that was actually unheard of before. This is what the cloud facilitated. And now when we speak about blockchain technology and when we speak about Web3, then what we mean is actually that there is a new technological layer coming in affecting exactly this. These verticals that you see on the top of that list, right? You have, at the very beginning, fundamental layer is the blockchain technology, solving the double spend problem without the need for an intermediary, right? This is the first big value proposition that blockchain brings in, and then you have plenty of others that can serve as, let's say, tools or fundamental layers to think business differently. What does that mean? Like when we look at what we as a group do, there's an entirely new approach to content, right? Ownership is changing. You don't need that many intermediaries and processes anymore. So you can think of the blockchain basically like a notary. They can prove a transaction automatically. Many of the business models globally, in fact, rely on the fact that there is a trusted institution, intermediary needed in order to, let's say, prove a transaction, make sure that it's actually along the lines of the, let's say, terms and conditions. A smart contract can do that automatically. So as a result of that, much revenue is actually freed up and new business models emerge. Just as a foundational kind of inspiration for you guys.
And the thing is, with the institutions, many people will now say, because I know this argument, like, okay, then you can trust the institution, but you can't always trust institutions and governments. And this is exactly the sweet spot where this also helps, not only for optimization, but also for trust.
Right. And if you look at the startup ecosystem, there is a lot happening at the moment. So what we as a group, obviously as a company, and I know we are not the only ones, there are so many looking into this, we are trying to understand this business logic. We're trying to understand what is possible now. And of course you can look at it like from a very high level and try to figure out what to do. But in fact, that is not always that easy, because you as a, let's say, non-coding professional, as somebody who works on the business side, you're always kind of depending on understanding how others innovate. And this is why we're very closely working together with the group as Bertelsmann Investments. Our funds invest in Web3, trying to understand where the disruption comes from, trying to understand how that affects the businesses that we do. To give you an example, in the content industry, it's quite simple. You have like one aspect is basically the content creation side. You have an artist, then content is created, it's distributed, and then at some point it's kind of curated. Then you have all the regulatory stuff, royalties, etc. And at the end of the day, it's sold. So it's a product. Take a song, take a book, take whatever. Now what we're trying to understand is how does this technology actually affect the way we do our business at the moment? And this is where, for example, an NFT, a non-fungible token, comes into play. It opens up an entirely new perspective of thinking about business, because people don't purchase stuff and just have it. They can start to actually really own digital content. And this is what changes the logic entirely, because now we are able to take this digital asset, connect content to it, connect the provenance, kind of the merger between the creator, the content, and the community that at the end of the day purchases that product into one asset, and add brands and other advertisers to really utilize that to build and form a community. And you can do that with much less friction. So let's say you have a revenue pool and you have less parties involved. The consequence is that there is more left for the content creator. And this is what is so interesting about Web3, there's also a lot left for the community. So you can actually make sure that they are rewarded for their loyalty, that they are rewarded for the fact that they're supporting the artist, the creator, the content that they would like to support, right? This is just one very concrete example, and what we are doing is we're trying to understand how the innovation looks like in the space, and then kind of transfer it to the divisions, and among them, of course, as well, Avato systems. Generally speaking, and this is, let's say, not an official statement, but we are also like kind of involved in knowledge sharing a lot. Like we want to exchange, we want to understand what kind of the ecosystem has to offer, but at the same time we also want to kind of tell the ecosystem what our problem statements are. And generally, and if we look at how corporates globally are kind of approaching this topic, it's always kind of a three-pillar approach. And this is always what we are trying to do as well, right? On the one hand, you have the first pillar, it's understanding. We really need to understand, in order to make sure that this kind of topic is really seen as what it is, an infrastructure layer with huge relevance, we need to understand how it is impacting us as a company, right? So what we need to do is we need to build assumptions, try to look into the space, see how how kind of the numbers are actually developing, and how much of the profit pools at the end of the day is affected by this technology, by this disruptive shift. Entirely assumption-based. You could even argue that it's kind of just guessing entirely blindly, but you need to actually at least kind of think about the ecosystem that you're operating in order to convince people to really look at it. And when I say convince people, then obviously I mean decision makers on a corporate level and beyond. The same is, by the way, also true for the regulatory side. Just to share some information about that, our findings at the moment really suggest that this topic is huge. If you look at the current macroeconomic situation, you all know it, you're all sensing it, prices are high, we have high inflation, we are in a very bad macroeconomic state, in particular in Europe. And the reasons for that are kind of manifold. We don't want to dive into that too much, but the consequence of such an insecurity in society usually is that assets are kind of declining in value. You see that with basically all assets at the moment. Like there is a big uncertainty, and in particular in the crypto space, because it's a high risk asset, right? But at the same time, if you look at other metrics that are not that imminent and prominent for you guys, for us as, let's say, normal people, then you start to realize that actually the exact opposite is happening in this space. So last year, I think we had approximately 33 billion US dollars, which is approximately 5% of the entire VC spending, invested in crypto, blockchain, NFT-related companies. 5% last year, 2021. You could argue, okay, good. Different year, different times, no war in Ukraine, we had cheap money in the market, was a one-time thing. But if you look at the numbers this year, with this completely different macroeconomic situation, then you see that big players are actually reacting. We had these 33 billion already in the middle of the second quarter, and we have by now already surpassed that. So despite this insecurity in the global market, there's a lot of money flowing in this innovation. And if we understand that and match that with our needs, then I think corporate players generally are set up to kind of transform into the right direction. Then the second pillar is education. Right? It's kind of derived from this first pillar, because once we have this understanding and stakeholders really see why is that important for me and my business, then they will start waking up. You can't in a corporate ecosystem, even in a startup, when you're building your own business idea, when you're developing your code and trying to bring it to other people, you need to tell them what is the value proposition. How does it affect those that make the decision? And most importantly, which value does it add? And this is why we're talking re-evaluating value. Which value does this new technology add to my end consumers? And this is what is very important and very difficult to do, because it requires a rudimentary technical understanding. And usually in business that was not needed before. You didn't need to explain to a decision maker how the cloud works. They wouldn't give a you know? They would just use it. But now, as it's so different in its business logic, because you don't necessarily need to use money anymore, right? You can use alternative means of payment. You can operate in a kind of parallel system that has an entirely new business logic. In this point in time, in order to make sure and explain and also kind of calm down the decision makers to say this is not kind of harming you in your position, it's actually a huge value that can be added if you move quick enough, very difficult. So it requires patience, and it requires really explaining what this technology actually brings as advantages. And then the third axis, and I mean, Anna is a living example of that, we need access to the ecosystems, right? We need access to the startups. We have that because we invest, right? We as a corporate VC, we have the opportunity via our funds to look at interesting business models, speak with the founders, have a knowledge transfer, maybe kind of collaborate with them. We actually did that, and Anna will also speak about that. But aside of that, it's about us coming here, about us learning from you guys, also understanding what is being built at the moment, and about understanding what kind of the challenges are that you are facing, and telling you about the challenges that we are facing. So it's about connecting kind of these two entirely different, sometimes even conflicting worlds in a sense, which we are also trying to do. So access to the ecosystems is extremely important, and that is why when we hired Anna, or Avato Systems, not we, I was not involved, I might just have said one or two nice things, but when we hired Anna, that is exactly kind of the motivation behind it. We need people that really understand the space, know the people, and then help us to get access into this ecosystem.
Thank you so much, but also grow from there, because I think there's still this misunderstanding in the existing Web3 community, which consists of approximately between 500,000 and 2 million wallets, that, oh my God, this is so huge, this is so big. Well, speaking of the numbers, it's still not, and we need more ambassadors who do not have to understand the tech side, by the way, totally, because I think, as Martin said, we have to talk more about the product. While 2021 was a lot about NFTs, and we always try to explain what an NFT is, we started realizing in the end that it's a lot more about the product. And me, coming from the art space, digital art is something that people do understand. So when we now look at what we can do at Avato Systems, you see for the different verticals that we have different products that we can possibly develop, and where we are looking into. And I think this is the interesting part, to see where we find our sweet spot, because of course there are many different ideas. A product that already exists, and Götz, I would be happy to have you introduce it later, is ImageJet. And I always see we start here, and many companies still have to come into the digital space before we talk about, oh my God, let's enter the metaverse because this is the future, it's infinite, it's the new America, whatever. But building the ship first and tell them, yeah, okay, with that you can travel over the ocean, whatever. This is where we have to start also as a company, talking with the customers and see where we can build together, explore these fields, and then add as many baby steps as we can, I think, because for mass market adoption, this is still necessary. So, yeah, we were already talking about digital identity if you were on the panel earlier. This does not only go for health, but of course digital identity is well connected with digital twins, which is interesting for industrial mid-caps and also for public. What I always see as a problem is IP rights and royalties. So far, we have metadata with some projects that is not really reliable. So if I, as a company, want to really go Web3, of course I want to know that the metadata is is safely stored, is working well, and that other people can steal from that, so that it goes the right way back to the creator. And finding the solution, especially for music rights, is not that easy. I know that many are working on this already, but it's kind of a thing that has to be solved still. What is also super interesting for utilities, so energy, CO2 tokenization. Starting next year, it is very possible that the regulation for the EU will say that every transaction on the blockchain has to have a certificate for how much CO2 was used. To be honest, with Ethereum that was transferred now to a proof of stake chain, it is a lot less energy consumption, but still we have Bitcoin, and you know, it's just in the EU we have to live with these regulatory things, and we as Avato Systems, being a trusted company, as I said at the beginning, should be the role models to really build on this. If this has to be a new blockchain, I don't know if we can work with the existing ones. We will have to figure this out together with our customers and see how far we can go and what we can do. We are very good at APIs. I see a lot of potential in e-commerce and also for loyalty systems that already exist and then that can be digitalized. Since, for example, Kaufland has already bought an island in a game called Animal Crossing. So they are also testing. Many companies are getting into a game, I don't know who knows that, called Roblox. Does anyone know Roblox? Okay, you playing this also? No. It's a Gen Z thing, but it's super interesting how many luxury brands are already testing there, and it's super successful. And in the end, when we talk about the metaverse now, what do we want to achieve? We want to make people familiar with the brand. And now I will come to a case that already exists. That is a very interesting one, because you were talking about fans and how we can integrate them more. And many of you might know American Idol or the German DS, Deutschland sucht den Superstar, maybe, which is kind of the comparable thing. Fremantle was working together with Theta to create a utility token. And what people could do is buy a token that had the name of an artist. And each time this artist won a round and got a step further to winning this American Idol stuff, they got an extra. They got some surprises, and so there was a benefit of having these tokens. And suddenly, although I think this was not even expected, people started trading these tokens, although they were supposed to only have the utility of really showing, yeah, I'm a true fan and I hope for my fan and this is a voting right. And sometimes you can't foresee what is going to happen with a community if it really loves the product. And I think this is a super good example. They have done 4 rounds, if I'm right, so far, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So this product is really working well, and at the moment we always have to think about how can we incentivize people more, not only in the music business, but in all parts of media.
Exactly, but maybe before we go further on that, I hope you're kind of starting to sense what we mean when we say we are kind of talking about re-evaluating the sense of value and the notion of value, right? So Anna now really kind of was talking about the metaverse a lot, which is not a pure Web3 thing, but kind of the whole blockchain ecosystem plays a tremendously important role simply for the fact that you now have, for the first time in history, the option to have a concept that we can call, let's say, digital scarcity, right? Before that, you would not be able to say, I don't know, this machine gun, this sword in a game, whatever, like this flower that is that is online, anything. You couldn't really say that this is yours, this is your ownership, that it belongs to you. Right now you can, because you have a provenance attached to it, and this is kind of introducing value into the digital world. This is one aspect. But then, just to go back to kind of the let's say normal reality that we are all living in, you're also re-evaluating value. If you look at money transactions, just to give you an idea how big this topic is, 13% of the GDP of the Philippines is the remittance market. You guys, I think, know what remittance is, but just like to kind of explain it in one sentence, when you send money from the Philippines to the US, that costs a lot of money. It's ranging between 20 and 40% of the transaction that you're kind of sending over. So if you send $100, it costs 100, or you pay $40 for the transaction, right? And that is because you need somebody to claim and stamp and kind of prove and validate that this transaction is actually real. In the blockchain, you can do that without that. You have native payments that you can send peer-to-peer from A to P. This is happening all the time. Stablecoins are a big deal with regards to that. This is freeing up so much revenue, and like studies that we have seen and that we're reading through were kind of indicating that by 2027, so in 5 years' time, you will have approximately 10% of the global GDP stored on any type of public chain, which is just huge. It's massive. It's a lot of money. We're speaking not millions or billions. We're speaking about trillions of dollars. And at the same time, think about how that can empower people. People that don't have a bank account, for instance. They can nevertheless kind of interact with the financial system. They can do transactions. People that don't have an identity, because they have a jurisdiction, a government that like just doesn't support them, they can get an identity. We've seen projects like in Ethiopia. I know one of the big chains is doing a project there, kind of registering all students. If you think about the war that is raging in Ukraine right now, many schools, official buildings, whatever, might be destroyed. All the papers that kind of prove what you did in the past are gone. But if you have them stored on a decentral layer, they cannot be taken away from you. So this is why it's kind of called the Internet of Value, right? It's an ownership economy. And it comes along with many opportunities, but at the same time it comes along with many risks. And with that, over to you for the closing remarks, I guess.
The closing remarks. I think we already heard this a little bit. Community. It is a very, very important topic. And now I want to come back from the metaverse to real life where we're right now. If you have the chance to visit the Hafengeburtstag tonight, you will find a treasure hunt. And you can get some information on moinweb3.de about this one. You can collect different fish hats. They are cute, illustrated by a company called Mutabor. So we, as different enterprises, work together to really develop a project that is absolutely community-driven. The companies were in the background. It is more like a community of a few people that are living in the northern part of Germany and that did this like in the evenings or whenever to create some experience that really is accessible for everybody. Because the only thing that you will need is your mobile phone to scan a QR code. And then you need an email address. So it's super easy access, what you already know from Web 1 or Web 2. What you get in the end is a so-called POAP, a proof of attendance protocol. You can imagine it's like a diary where you collect badges, and they are kind of a diary of your life, and you will see later, oh, okay, there was there and then there. The beauty of this one is it is like minted on a second layer of the Ethereum blockchain. The Ethereum blockchain, some will know, I have to hurry now. So in the end, if this gets valuable for whatever reason, you can transfer it there and you can also trade it. And if you collect 4 out of 5, you will also get a special edition that will be airdropped into your wallet, so you don't have to do anything else. And discovering a city, with having this additionally, we want to create these experiences which Web3 also is about, not only in the metaverse, but in the real life. And creating these interconnectivities is one of my main goals for working at Avato Systems. And thank you very much.
Thank you for coming here. I hope we could kind of shed some light. I mean, it's a very complex topic. Please feel free to ask specific questions. We will dive into them.
First, this is very important because I promised, and this is very important because, Götz, please come here. This is the product owner of our ImageJet, and let us give you a short time to introduce that project, because I love it so much.
Hi and welcome. My name is Götz Moritz Bongartz. I also work with Avato Systems Digital, and we are creating a 3D asset management system that is also connected to a marketplace and uses the very good interchangeable format USD, Universal Scene Description, as the main asset type. And yeah, so we are building this up right now. We have 2 clients already working with that. And so if you are into 3D, that means if you are, for example, Python, pipeline TD, or if you work with side effects, Houdini, Maya, your character TD, I'd really welcome you to get in touch because we are looking for people. We are actually hiring. So if you're interested, get in touch. Very nice, very interesting, very cool project for your portfolio. And payment is also nice. So yeah. Cheers.
Perfect. Guys, you can reach out. You have the QR codes, scan them. We will connect you to Götz. You can also speak with us if you find that interesting. Thank you for coming. And now, please feel free to ask any questions you might have.
And you just have to speak loudly. We don't have an extra mic because the other one wasn't working. So just feel free if there was anything you didn't understand or that you feel like, I don't know, I have heard everything from sustainability to the blockchain is dangerous and you don't need it. Feel free to ask. We are always open exactly for these topics too.
Thank you.